Maybe it was a murder hobo. Perhaps it was a dark and edgy lone wolf who barely spoke to any of the party. Or there's a chance it could have been a bard who tried to seduce every single NPC. Regardless of the flavor, I imagine if you play tabletop roleplay games for long enough, there's a chance you ran into a trope or two, be it a player character, an NPC, or an entire questline. After all, tropes are just common themes or devices used throughout all of media. We see narrative ones like the enemies to lovers arc between Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth Bennet, or the chosen one trope found in literally 90% of video games, including MMOs for some odd reason. We see them in music, like the ominous Latin chanting of every Dark Souls boss fight, and we see them in gameplay mechanics like chest eye walls and red explosive barrels. And I always get just a little bit disappointed if the barrel doesn't explode. But today I want to talk about one specific flavor and how I have to fight every urge to beat them to death with my DM screen, and that is character tropes. I'll be going over 3 character tropes that make me want to take D20s and shove them so far into my ears I'll never have to hear from them again. But don't worry, because it won't be all doom and gloom. I'll also be going over 3 character tropes that I absolutely love, because a good trope can be a beautiful addition to any campaign. Starting with one of the most common tropes I have ever come across. If you take a pinch of Batman and a dash of Aragorn and mix it with a healthy dose of main character syndrome, you'll end up with a stoic loner. A trope that to this day I cannot understand how people find it fun to play. Usually, this type of character only acts for its own interest, always answers any attempt at conversation with edgy one-liners and a dark gaze, and usually carries some sort of blade that has been honed over thousands of battles, and it usually tends to be a katana. Oh, and the backstory is so tragic it'll make you roll your eyes so hard it'll be audible. Which is odd, because for such a stoic character, they're usually pretty quick to tell you their entire history. Stoic loners are pretty popular within media, with the likes of John Wick, The Mandalorian, and a sizable selection of anime protagonists. However, there's one fatal flaw with such a character. Most popular tabletop roleplay games are built for party play, which means the whole one-man army fanfiction that these players are trying to write rarely ever turns out well for them. Instead, it usually creates a fair amount of animosity and drives a wedge throughout the entire group. On the complete opposite end of the spectrum is one of my favorite tropes, the parental figure. It's often seen as a motherly figure and sometimes a fatherly one, but they generally always tend to be some sort of mentor to the main character, and their death is usually the catalyst that starts the entire story. But every now and then, they join the party proper. And when they do, it's fantastic. It's like a walking mug of cocoa is wandering around with the party, offering advice, a friendly shoulder, and even guiding some of the younger and more naive party members. Often they're wise to the world and its ways, from different histories to knowledge about factions and races that inhabit the lands. Honestly, as a forever DM, I adore having such a character at my table, as the players often have similar traits to the character. Parental figures make for amazing glue when it comes to party cohesion, both in-game and above table, and it's a huge help when it comes to running an entire campaign. Not to mention, their backstories always tend to be a little bit more lighthearted, which is a breath of fresh air. That being said, the parental figure does have an evil version, the elderly character. They often pose as parental figures, but most of the time are just thinly veiled jokes. I think this opinion might get a few pitchforks raised and torches lit, but I hate granny characters. The sort of character where every spell and action is a joke at the fact that the character is elderly. They use knitting needles as weapons, oven mitts as armor, and their spells always tend to be teapots or finger sandwiches. Unfortunately, it rarely gets anything than a brief from me. Admittedly, the elderly character is more of a stereotype than a trope per se. The trope is more of a walking joke character. This is where the character is usually as deep as the joke is, and once you've heard that punchline a couple of times, the next few hundred are like nails on a chalkboard. They usually come in a few different shades, from badass grandma to halfling who's actually just a child, or character who makes the stupidest choice at any given moment, and all of them need punting into the sea. Not every character needs to be a fantastical machination of heroic duty and masterful deeds. Sometimes it's the stable hand who picked up a sword to defend their village against bandits. A fish-out-of-water realist who's been swept up in the currents and is enjoying the ride, even if the dangers cause them to err with caution. Some characters are thrust into a story based on a catalyst that they had no control over, but let's be clear, I'm not talking about reluctant heroes who tend to be a massive pain in the ass when it comes to D&D. I'm talking about somebody who unintentionally became a hero and reacted to a situation as it was unfolding and now is stuck in the story for better or worse. This trope tends to add characters with a unique perspective to the journey, both in roleplay relationships as it can form mentor and mentee scenarios, or as the quest grows, going from I want to defeat the bandits to having to retrieve something they might have stolen, or paying off a debt the village needs to solve. Before I get into the final two, it's time for a trope of my own, where I ask you all to like the video and subscribe if you don't want to miss any more. Don't forget, you can also come say hi over on Instagram, Discord, Twitch, and a bunch of other places, links for which are down below. Evil is maybe one of the most nuanced subjects in all of media. So much so, I could probably make an entire video just on the subject. However, there tends to be one specific type that pops up the most in D&D. Obvious evil. You know, the warlock who tortures innocent creatures intentionally under the banner of the greater good and doesn't even break a sweat. Torture is always a weird topic in D&D because of how often players quickly jump to it, even though it's going to be one of the most mentally taxing and stressful things a person could ever do. Anyway, now and then a pale mage with a long beard and strange markings will turn up, and they might as well have evil dickhead written across their forehead. They interact with NPCs as if they're already corpses, and they make flagrant and out-of-turn comments during adventures in front of the entire party. The same party that just shit on a bunch of evildoers just like them. I have rarely, if ever, seen a well-played evil character in all of my time role-playing, because unfortunately, evil takes a pretty sizable amount of subtlety to get right, and that is something a lot of people, unfortunately, lack. You also might need to work pretty closely with your DM between sessions to elaborate on some of the evil deeds you want to do, and some tables might just not entertain such a thing. Personally, I'm always happy to have one-on-one private discussions with my players so they can get the most out of their characters and the games we're playing. But even then, I might want to keep any wannabe evil on a pretty tight leash. When you're 30 minutes into planning the perfect strategy for the next room in the dungeon, only for the door to be kicked open and the barbarian to go charging in, that's what I like to call headstrong muscle. To clarify, they're not stupid or slow, but confident and tired of your mouth wiggling. A common pitfall of most D&D parties is sitting down to work out the perfect plan for every minute of D&D, leading to a crawl in pace. But the headstrong muscle helps to avoid this by being exactly that. Usually they are able to stick to a plan, but every now and then they get sick and tired of waiting for everyone to come up with the perfect solution when they could be wading in to kick ass and take names, so they just get on with it. While this might sound frustrating to people who have to have everything strategized, I love them for one specific reason. it forces the rest of the party to improvise, which at the end of the day is the entire nature of tabletop roleplay games. Rather than have everything planned to the finest hair, these characters keep things interesting and the others on their toes. While I've named 3 good and 3 bad, it doesn't mean that there aren't sometimes bad versions of good tropes and fantastic versions of bad tropes. The main thing is to realize that a trope itself isn't bad. They exist and are popular for a reason. Lean into your favorite ones and make a character that you're going to be enthralled by rather than avoiding them because they're not original. The only caveat that I would add is to ensure you make your own character. I don't particularly want to see Gerald of Caviar or Richard Belford, the monster hunter, turning up at my table, and that's mostly because playing existing characters creates an expectation of what you want to happen, and unfortunately, in tabletop RPGs like D&D and Daggerheart, that may just lead to disappointment. And that, my beautiful beasts, is where we come to the end of the video. Let me know your favorite and most hated tropes down in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, ensure to like and subscribe to support me. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and if I'm lucky, I'll see you in the next one. Ta-ra.